let's get this started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to No Shooting on Yourself. And that would be one way I would like to enter 2025, really, after shooting on myself the whole year. My name is Afreina, and I am the program manager for community engagement and partnerships at Unsinkable. And today I am hosting this chat from traditional territories of many people, Jojage, which is what the Ganagahaga, and now many others call Montreal. This place has been and continues to be a historical gathering for many indigenous peoples. And with me, I have my colleague Asante.
Hey, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. My name is Asante Haughton. I'm the manager of storytelling here at Unsinkable, coming to you from Toronto, also known as Takaranto. And yeah, we want to acknowledge that where I'm coming from is on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. The city also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. So, also just taking this moment with respect to the land acknowledgements, I think we have to go a little bit farther than acknowledging the land that we're on and moving toward action with respect to truth and reconciliation and justice. So, whenever you have time this evening, over the weekend, take some time to, I invite you to take some time to reflect on how you can, do your part and mobilize your community to move toward truth and reconciliation and justice. So, over to you.
I love that, Asante. And just, I don't know, it might just be me, but I think as you were talking, initially your voice came strong, but then it got lighter, lighter. So maybe just come a bit forward.
Okay.
Now you're good. I think you're
All
good.
right.
I just heard one
Cool.
word. All right. And a bit about Unsinkable. So here at Unsinkable, we harness the power of storytelling to bridge the gap between traditional mental health resources and innovative psychosocial support models. The Unsinkable Storytelling, that's Asante, Community Champions, that's me, and youth programs, which is our colleague Maria, who's working behind the scenes today, draw from diverse personal stories to help others discover they are not alone and recovery is possible. Today's chat, we're going to focus on the new year and the pressures that this time of the year bring on our mental health. I'm going to start by introducing our panelists for tonight. First off is Felix, a recent psychology graduate from York University with a curious mind and a love for learning. He's passionate about helping others unlock their full potential, drawing on his academic background combined with his own unique lived experiences. Felix is dedicated to inspiring resilience and empowering individuals to navigate life's challenges. His interests lie in discovering innovative, holistic approaches to help others understand the intricate connections between mental health, personal growth, and well being. Glad to have you here with us tonight, Felix.
Thanks for the intro. I appreciate that.
And our next panelist is Megan. Megan is a wellness coach, a consultant specializing in working with female founders, leaders, and modern companies to help them thread strategic wellness practices into their existing routines and company culture. She self published her first book, 10-Day Detox, in 2019, helping moms detox everyday toxins to reboot their vitality. Her next book, Marinating in Chaos, is coming out soon, and she's on a mission to redefine wellness with a less is more approach. I love that, and thank you for being with us tonight, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
And our last but not least panelist, Vanessa, is a dedicated mental health advocate with a strong passion for supporting youth mental health. Drawing from her own lived experience, she connects with others to offer peer support and empower those navigating mental health challenges. Vanessa is a graduate of the University of Toronto and Humber College, where she studied sociology, criminology, and addictions and mental health. Whoa, Vanessa, welcome aboard. That's pretty cool.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight.
And with those introductions, I am going to pass the baton over to you, Asante, and for us to just dive into the questions we have for our panelists tonight. Oh,
We got to explain the game, don't we?
yes, I was just about to say, could you explain the game first?
All right. So, for those of you in the audience, our title for the event is "No Shooting on Yourself," which is what's going to happen is we're going to say the word should a lot this evening. So I don't know if you've ever went to like a carnival and you saw like the jar of like M&Ms and you had to like guess how many M&Ms were in the jar. We're going to kind of do a similar thing today where those of you in the audience, before we get started, we want you to guess how many times do you think all of us collectively on the panel are going to say should. I just got the answer box popping up on I'm not allowed to vote. It just popped up, but it's telling me I can't vote. Man, what a tease. Um, anyway, so you all should have got a pop-up just now telling you to put your vote in. And so put your vote in, and at the end of the night, we'll tally up how many shoulds were said. Maria is keeping track. And the person who is closest with their guess to the amount of shoulds that we say, meaning all of us, panelists, hosts, etc., tonight, um, it'll be something special for you. So anyway, with that being said, are we good to jump right in, Afreina?
Yeah, I think this is up there, and we have just one more person left to put in their guess. And yo,
Okay.
those are really good chances of you winning something pretty cool. So putting the last person left, put in your guess. You're really close.
Unsinkable is good at prizes. Like we're an organization that's good at that. I think the last thing we'll acknowledge is that we're supposed to have a fourth person here today, Michaela, but she wasn't able to make it. She wasn't feeling well this evening, so she gives her regrets. So we have Megan, Vanessa, and Felix, who will definitely hold it down. All right. Are we finally ready? Are we good to go? All right. I could feel the hearts beating. Um, so the first question, this one is for everybody. What does no shooting on yourself mean to you?
Whoever unmutes first gets to go. There you go, Felix.
Oh, God, I was the one. No, thank you. So I feel like, definitely got to get right into it. Not shitting on yourself, I feel like means something different for everyone. But I know in my life, um, I've realized, especially on the journey I've been on recently, and just like pushing myself as far as I can, that it's a bit of a commitment to um, just letting bygones be bygones, letting your present experiences speak for themselves, and not like tethering yourself to whatever happened in your past or whatever ways in which you're not really adequate, or however you compare yourself to people, um, tends to be something that like it's something you have to work on. You don't just jump in like, nah, I'm not gonna shit on myself. No, it takes a while. It's really being patient. But yeah, I'm curious of what everyone else has to say.
I get to go next, I guess. Yeah, I think that's definitely a thread. Another way of looking at it is we are just, as a society, signed up to a pace in life that is insane. It's completely disconnected from nature. You can't plant a seed, grow it, and harvest all at the same time. And we're just on this like constant cycle. And so I think it's asking yourself the stories you're telling yourself about your shoulds, where are they coming from? Like, are they really yours? Is it, some level of family or friends? Like back to what Felix was saying, like, are you on this comparison spectrum with, peers, with someone else online? Or this is the other thing, like we didn't used to be able to see what 1,000 people are up to and accomplishing at any given point. And so I think it's taking a step back and really tuning into what sounds and feels in tune for me personally, to accomplish or look towards this month, this year, and make that okay.
I love that perspective, by the way.
Thanks, Vanessa.
I think for myself personally, I echo a lot of the things that Megan and Felix have already mentioned. But the first thing I think of when I think of no shooting on yourself is essentially that type of mindset is living for other people and not living for your true authentic self. There's all of this like self-criticism, and that mindset just contributes to such a negative bias and such a negative lens. And when we are kind of stuck in that mindset, it's telling our brains that's the first place we want to go. And we want to criticize ourselves based on a lot of what other people and their expectations are, whether that's people around us, whether that's societal expectations. So definitely something that a lot of generations, I think, previously hadn't experienced as much, especially with social media and just everything kind of being so out in the open and in your face. And ultimately, we got to work towards living for ourselves and putting ourselves first.
Right on.
Uh,
Yeah. I think before this session, I just thought everybody just has the same definition of, how you should on yourself. And I think what's interesting is to see like three different yet with the same vein almost responses. For me, like one thing that I would always think is some kind of a timeline or where I'm supposed to be or what I'm supposed to look like and what should, where should I be, when should I be, and how should I be. And you're right, Vanessa, with like social media, it's so like real time what you see for people or like how they're being right now or at any point that it really it's making it more difficult to live your authentic life because you're not getting that news like a year later in a letter, you know? Asante, what's it like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a serial shooter. I'm constantly shooting on myself. Um, And my mom has always been a person who's been like, "Why are you doing that? Don't shoot on yourself. You have to understand that your journey is unique, and that your journey is, um, it's yours alone. And when you start comparing yourself to others, is when you invite, some of those negative feelings about yourself into your world. So I really do try to practice and like reframe a lot, but it's really easy to get caught in the vortex of the shoulds, um, and something I still battle with if I'm being super real.
Which, is really personally surprising to me because Asante is one of the most positive and upbeat people I know. And he's always so encouraging to you and like to other people. And then here you go telling me this about yourself, and I'm like,
There's
really?
a lot happening under the surface, you know?
Yeah.
it's always
Yeah.
like crazy.
Yeah.
I get a lot of the same comparisons where people will be like, "Oh, like you're so carefree," and I'm like, "You don't know what's going on in my head. Like it's every day is another battle, it's these patterns, and we got to break the patterns. So yeah, no, I'm really happy we could have this conversation because I can relate heavily. So I'm learning too.
Okay. Well, that's great because I have another question, and that is a bit deeper. Where do you think shooting on yourself comes from? Megan, you look ready to go on that one.
Sure. I mean, I kind of think it relates a little bit back to what I already said, and I'll tie in what you said. Like, I think you have to keep asking yourself, whose timeline am I living on or for? And so without going on a tangent, because I'm really good at that, but where does it come from? I think it comes from just the pace of society, and that it's we're all public figures now, and we're all feeling this pressure to publicize like what we've accomplished that day before 7 a.m., like by the end of the week, by the end of the quarter, by the end of the year. And so, and I mean, I don't remember, I'm 45, and when I grew up, I don't remember there being, a lot of vision boards and like, what are your 2024 wins? And, like really focusing on your accomplishments. And I think it is important, and there's definitely a place. But if that's your main motive, then you're going to burn out. Long story short, it needs to come from within, that, and which takes usually some stepping back, some going offline, some being in nature. Just we're losing the ability to do nothing. That's one of the things that like social prescribing is, just go stand and stare at a tree. Try it. Like, how long are you going to be able to do it before you want to do something else? Because we're just at this pace, like the dopamine fixes of scrolling and all this. I think it's so important to have moments, and ideally like longer than moments, that you're stepping back and asking these questions, like, whose timeline am I on, and is that goal really mine?
Literally, I think Megan hit the nail on the head because when you start to look at like generational changes as well, you see that the younger people, like my age group, they're surrounded by their world is completely different. And I feel like a lot of us aren't taught to really deal with that pressure. And really, I always like to say that maybe like the generation I grew up with the internet, they're an experimental generation because we haven't seen the full results of what happens when kids are exposed to things like social media and like such rapid information. And so it's kind of scary, but it's also something that I guess we all got to deal with together. Um, but just to go a little bit back on what the question or how I see the question, I do also think there's a sense of low self worth that comes with it. And, a lot of us, we struggle with comparison. And really, the whole comparison comes from not seeing yourself as like worthy enough for praise. And that's something we all have to work on. And in not shitting on yourself, you slowly gain that ability back as you start to let go of your past issues and your shoulds. Like, I should have done this. You feel dumb, you feel this, that. And it's something that I've definitely been working on, and I could see the progress happening. So yeah.
Vanessa, I'm curious, do you have any thoughts?
I mean, when I think of this question, I definitely um think of it very internalized to myself. And a lot of the ideas comes from society, comes from their norms and expectations, but it also, I feel, has come for myself personally around the people closest to me and the opinions I value, and at times even opinions I don't value, but for whatever reason I get hung up on. And so that kind of attributed to like insecurities and having that low self-worth and having that low self-confidence, and finding that with external validation, that really helped me feel better and maybe get a little bit of that dopamine fix, but it was very temporary. And then again, I'm living for somebody else's expectations and they're validating me and they're praising my accomplishments, but I'm feeling uneasy about it, maybe because it's not something that necessarily I wanted to do or the timeline I wanted to do it on, or again, there's the possibility of not meeting their expectations either, and that feeling worse, and then kind of bringing back that cycle of shooting on yourself to try and think of everything else that you could have done when everything else has already been, the decisions have been made, the choices have been made, and instead of ruminating on that and those things that are no longer in your control, kind of moving forward.
Auntie?
Absolutely. And what I'm taking from all of this is that, like, we're being bombarded constantly with like these messages of like, who we should be and, where we should be at and, how much we should have accomplished. And for me, there is, Megan, with what you were saying, this kind of like obsession with accomplishment. There seems to, for me, there seems to be this connection between accomplishment and personal value. And the more you accomplish, is the more valuable you are as a person. And I dislike that idea. um, because we shouldn't be measuring people and putting them on a hierarchy based on accomplishments. What is an accomplishment anyway? There are plenty of people who are doing amazing things that are, we would never know they're accomplished because maybe they haven't won awards, but they could be a pillar in their community, changing lives, right? I think that it is important to kind of think about, you know, where are the shoulds coming from, and to do as much as we can once we recognize that, to uh, start to think about maybe how can we release and let some of those pieces go. Raina, do you have any thoughts or?
I always have thoughts.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, for me, I think it's two things specifically. Like, one is definitely the self-esteem, because when we are looking intrinsically or when we find our validation internally, then really a lot of this noise just quietens down. But when we are looking externally for validation, then obviously what somebody says or how we present ourselves starts to mean a lot more. And on the other hand, with an like increasingly digital world with like advertising everywhere and, like marketing, good and bad, both just telling us all the time, like how we should be, what we should be doing. I'm not gonna say any more shoulds over here. I'm really falling into this trap, but like it's telling us, it's almost dictating us. And then obviously you feel inadequate. You don't feel enough. And when you don't feel enough, you start to shit on yourself, really. I mean, that's and I just kind of took all your answers and condensed them into mine as well. Uh,
I think that was a good segue though, Afreina, because the next question is, what happens when you do get caught, like when you get caught up shooting on yourself too much, what happens? How does that impact you?
Really, I'll just jump in.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a snowball effect. Um, I could see where, obviously this is just my perspective, but even from talking to some of my close friends, um, you could see the it kind of manifesting and building up over time. Um, and it's something that you have to snap out of. And if you were in that cycle of shitting on yourself and you're starting to get too self-conscious, you're starting to get stuck in your head, I feel like you have to have someone to pull you out of it, or you have to have an event that allows you to kind of like get back to reality that reminds you of your worth. Um, but for generally from shitting on yourself, I think what just happens is for people that are stuck in that cycle, you could see just again low self-worth. um I feel like it could lead into things like depression when you don't meet up to those expectations. It really depends on the person, right? But it's just really like a cycle and a spiral. But yeah, hopefully we can get better with that.
I can definitely echo the spiral. And the first thing that I thought of hearing this question was, for myself, it's that guilt and shame spiral. And so I feel guilty that I'm not living up to those expectations and not being who I should be or where I should be. And then I'm feeling ashamed as well. And so those two feelings are kind of battling with each other. And they've contributed a lot to some of the more like self-limiting behaviors um that I've been experiencing and still do experience. So feeling like an imposter in places where I've worked really hard to get to, but maybe I still get there and I don't feel like I deserve that. Or, using myself as that kind of punching bag and not speaking totally nice to me if I'm comparing myself to somebody else who is, in my perspective, accomplishing more or doing more or being more productive. And really, I don't have all of the facts of what their experience is, what they're thinking, or how factual their information that they're presenting out to the world is. And it's really tricky to get stuck in that spiral and pull yourself out. And so I think what Felix was saying is having somebody else being able to do that for you, and also learning strategies for yourself, because we are with ourselves 100% of the time. We are with our own thoughts 100% of the time. And so having other people boost us is great. But then I also find myself getting stuck in the, well, they're just saying that because they're friends of mine, or they want me to feel better, but do I really deserve this? So it's kind of that shoulding thought process really dives into all the dialogues externally and internally.
I just wanted to add to that real quick as well. It's really scary how, Vanessa, you were mentioning how, that there's a cycle, like I said, and that cycle kind of becomes your identity over time, which is like really scary. You start to identify with some of those negative words, it starts with just a thought. And then the next day it's the same thing. And then you fail again. And it's like, oh my gosh, I should be this, I should be doing that. And then you feel trapped. So yeah, breaking out of that identity that you created in your head is also really important.
If you're not actively taking yourself out of that, I would say ideally every day at some point in the day, like winding down properly. But like my clearer strategy over the years of being an entrepreneur, where I'm my own boss, and if something's not getting done, if the to-dos are not getting done, like it's all on me, I have to have a very intentional way of not always being on. And so over the years, it's for sure all of Sunday. You know, I like am not online on Sundays. I just am not checking in with anyone. Even like friends and family know you have to make plans with me before Sunday morning, or you're probably not going to get hold of me on Sundays. And just being intentionally unavailable, I think, is really powerful in today's world. And similar to that, just also blocking your time, like getting to know your own like uptake in energy to get things done, and like be in your to-do list, and crush it, and then also totally pull back and make it okay that whatever day or whatever hour of the day you're just taking time to recharge. And there's like so many ways that you can recharge, but I think giving ourselves the permission to essentially like opt out of this cycle it daily is ideal. But if like that's something you really struggle with, I mean, for me with clients, it's like adults need bedtime routines. I'm a mom of two, and I created beautiful routines for my sons, and now I do it for all sorts of adults too, because it's really hard to turn off based on all these things that we're talking about. And so whatever it is, that's something special you do for yourself to shift out of to-do list mode. I think really really helps, and figure out the way that you're personally like recharging and making it okay to not always need to be accomplishing like anything.